X-Pac 12360. Featuring weekly news, insider commentary, and interviews with superstars, past and present from the world of pro wrestling.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean
X-Pac,
Waltman.
2, 1.
Welcome to X-Pac 12360, everyone. What's going on? This is Sean X-Pac Waltman. How's it going? What's going on, Jimbo, on the couch? I'm great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
There we go.
I can.
There we go.
Well, I could hear you because you're standing. You're sitting 3 feet away from me. But and sitting next to Jimbo, we got Lula.
She's so comfortable right now.
Yeah. And next to Lula, we got the lovely Denise Salcedo.
Hey,
All
everyone.
right.
Hey, everyone.
And I think Bill Handstock quit.
Did you?
Yeah, he just quit. He said he's not ever coming back.
I don't know about that.
No, I think maybe he's coming back
I
next
think
week.
he's at the Sundown Motel right now.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know.
he's at the No-Tell Motel. And sitting next to me, the lovely TK Trinidad.
Hey.
And, before we get started talking about other things, I just want to say that our guest today is Nick Aldis, a.k.a. Magnus.
Yeah.
What was it, Impact or TNA championship? How was that? What was the title called?
He's
When
been
he was...
both, I think. I think he's been
TNA.
in.
He was TNA World Champion,
Yeah.
and then he was also Global Force Champion as well.
Gotcha. But I liked that pick for, I thought he was a good pick for that.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
of all the guys on that roster. So, we'll be talking to Nick in a little bit. He has some things coming up he wants to talk about. And,
Awesome.
there's a lot of good things to talk to Nick about. We haven't had him on the show, and full disclosure, we've been talking about having him on for a little bit now. So, a little bit later, we'll be talking to him. And this week, this past week, starting on, I think it was Thursday. Got to get my days right here. That every day kind of,
Blurs
blends
together.
into the next. But I believe it was Thursday, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson.
Saturday.
Was it Saturday?
Yeah. Friday night we went to dinner.
Well,
And
what
we
was
went to
Thursday?
the comedy show.
Oh, that's
And then-
right. Wow. Talk about
It all,
brain
well, you had
dead
a
Fred
crazy,
here.
you had a crazy weekend, man. It all blurs
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so Friday.
So Friday we went and met Conrad and Bruce for dinner
yes,
at the Italian
at
place.
Dan Tana's.
Yeah, which was
Oh,
really
in
good. Our
Hollywood.
waiter was a
Dantana's is
character.
amazing.
Yeah.
Our waiter was a character.
Yeah, and so we're sitting there, right? And all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, Sean!" And I look up, and it's Tyrell Ventura, just the son of Jesse Ventura, who I hadn't seen in, God, it's probably been like 15, 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was so happy to see you.
Yeah,
you were so
man,
happy
I was
to
so
see
happy
him
to
too.
see him too. What's that? What did Phil? What'd you say?
All right.
Man, I hear stuff in my ear. And I'm
We
like,
got
Something
voices
new.
like Randy Orton.
I'm gonna do a Lawrence O'Donnell. Wonder what those voices? Oh, there's probably people that are going, "Who's Lawrence O'Donnell?
Yeah.
What's that hammering sound upstairs?"
So Friday dinner
Yeah.
with them, and then Jesse's son came and said hi to you. You were so excited to see him.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they were all going to see Ron Funches
Yeah, and I
perform
didn't
at the
even know.
Improv.
I didn't even know Ron was going to be at the Improv, but Ron was just part of Adam Devine from Workaholics, and the last guy on the bill that night was Jamie Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
So it was a pretty stacked night
So
at the Improv.
everyone was hilarious.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. What was the
blonde-
girl's name?
blonde
The
girl-
blonde lady.
Oh man, I
She was
can't-
the best.
Is he?
Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know because
She
was
killed
definitely
it.
best of the
She
night.
was so funny.
Yeah. And Theo Vaughn, he was the guy that sounded like he was from down south.
Oh yeah, he was
Yeah.
really fun. The host, right? Was
No,
that the
no,
host?
that's-
oh
that
the guy
guy's-
that went after the host.
Yeah, that guy's name. What the hell was that guy's name? It doesn't matter. It does matter, but I can't-
Everyone was great at the Improv.
Yeah.
Go check it out, Hollywood Improv.
Yeah. So, Bruce and Conrad and them showed up for that, and then the next day, Jimbo couldn't make it to Something to Wrestle with.
so
Oh my
bummed.
God, I can't believe it! You missed out on so much, Jimbo.
I know, I'm so sad.
I would be if I were you.
I was pissed that when I saw Barry Blaustein was there, that just was the
Yeah.
shot to the heart of why didn't I go? I was so mad at myself.
Oh, wow.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. How was it?
Oh, it was great. It was fun. Will Sasso was there.
We got a picture of you and him.
Yeah. I didn't think they were going to let Lula into the venue, and I got hot.
Really?
I was standing outside the venue. The guy's going, I got to ask my owner. I'm like, showing him my service animal. I'm like, you don't understand. Federal law says that you can't say I can't come in here unless there's some other problem with me, you know. Anyways, so I had a bad attitude at that moment, and up comes Chavo Guerrero. And so the first time I'd seen him in quite a while, and I'm like, I don't even hug him. I'm in such a shitty mood at that moment. And luckily things got straightened out immediately, and I was just fine. But when it comes to Lou, I get pretty defensive. And, you know, like, I understand from their point of view. The guy was just doing his job. So, anyways, good show. Will Sasso, the first guy that I ran into when I got there. And I'd never met him before. He's so talented. He did so many really, really funny impressions. You know, Austin, Hogan, and then Pritchard. Like, I'm sitting in between them, and Pritchard's right here doing impressions, and, you know, they're going back and forth talking to each other in different characters, and it was pretty fun.
So what was the format of the show? They bring out one wrestler at a time and just talk about that situation? Like they brought you on stage and they talked about your experience with what? With Bruce, with WCW? With
No,
WWE?
it wasn't really any. We just kind of shot the shit, and actually, wow, I hope Jerry, well, I guess he'd probably forgive me at this point. But Bruce brought up a rib that I helped pull on Jerry Jarrett. Because apparently Jerry, back then when he was with WWF at the time, Vince, no one was sure if Vince was going to go to jail or not over that.
Steroid.
Yes. So Vince brought in Bill Watts, he brought in Jerry Jarrett, different people to see, you know, how they would do, you know, with manning the helm, you know, captaining the ship. And so Jerry Jarrett made the mistake of saying, no one's ever ribbed me before.
You're like, that's my cue.
No, it wasn't mine because I like Jerry. It wasn't mine, but I was definitely at that time more than willing to help. And so I guess I went and got somebody from the production crew. And I used to have this done every now and then, like get a cable and they'd loop it at each end, and then I'd get a big ass padlock, and then, you know, like maybe some random guy like Adam Bomb would find his shit hanging from the ceiling or that. And I guess what happened was I got Jerry's luggage and Jerry Jarrett, and I wrapped this chain or cable, whichever one it was, all through his stuff, and there was a desk in the building that was actually like cemented or like bolted into the ground. Yeah, and so I fastened it to that.
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, and Jerry Jarrett called the police.
Yeah. What did you do?
I didn't do anything because I wasn't even there. You can't prove it.
Wow.
That is so sad.
Were you this much of a troublemaker as a kid?
Not as, oh yeah, but just in different ways. I was a pretty bad kid. Yeah, when you're left to your own devices as a child, things get really bad.
Because it seems like you were very creative in a lot of the stories that you've done to people while you're.
Yeah,
I like
it was kind of you know, it was the wrong way to channel my energy and you know, brain power. I will say that.
So what do the cops do when they show up?
I can't remember
Laugh at him?
because I don't remember that part. This is Bruce telling that part of the story. Because, you know, like, as much as I would have liked to have been at the scene of the crime.
You got out of there.
Yeah.
You got out of there.
Smart
as fast as
move.
you
Yeah,
could.
and I guess Luna was involved, and she was crying, and she was just putting on an act, you know.
And Chavo was there. What other wrestlers were there?
Yeah, Chavo came out. Okay, so actually, Tommy Blocka come out first.
Okay.
He used to write for WWE.
All right.
Told the story about delivering the hand.
Oh, the Mae Young hand?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Chavo came out. I'm not sure exactly what all was said. I know there was quite a few F-bombs dropped.
And then Barry came out?
No, Barry came out at the end. Yeah.
And what did he say?
He said that the only thing he got to say was, yeah, I was listening to the podcast, and this guy called me a dick. And pointed to Conrad.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Barry.
I do
love
like
to meet
Barry a
him.
lot. It was great to see him. It had probably been, I don't know, a good 15, 20 years or so.
I've been at several shows where he's there, and
Yeah.
I just haven't had the opportunity to go like thank him for making Beyond the Mat, and
Right.
talk to him. So when I saw that he was there and I didn't go, I was so pissed at myself. Next time.
Yeah. And then we went out to, after the show was over, we went to, God damn it. What's the name of that place?
The Rainbow?
No. It was a really nice place. Let's
You
just
guys
put
went
it
to a
that
nice
way.
restaurant?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'll probably think of the name of it.
In the middle of the...
I mean, it was expensive.
Oh, yeah?
Was it in West Hollywood or where
Yeah.
was it?
It was in downtown.
Did Bruce foot the bill
It
for
was a
that?
steakhouse.
Oh, I know.
Morton's?
No, not Morton's, but one of those, like Fleming's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Fleming's.
yeah?
Fleming's,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that is not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lou ate very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, Lucy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that picture with you and Lou. That should be like your profile picture.
It was
Which
so
one?
funny.
The one with you and you holding Lou and you're like on the stage.
Oh, yeah.
Just so like.
I was hoping that you would lighten that picture up when I sent it to you, Jimbo.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
I should have done it before I sent it to you.
Someone tweeted that. It was the highlight of their night.
Yeah.
Oh,
Seeing
yeah.
you
I
come
saw
out with
that.
a dog strapped to your chest.
It was for Conrad because
Yeah.
he didn't like he hadn't seen me when I got there. He was already out on stage. So when I came walking out on stage with Lou strapped to my chest, he just shit like his grin went from ear to ear. He was so happy.
Yeah, all of them were really cool.
Yeah.
And then after that, No Mercy.
Yes,
You
No
went to
Mercy.
No Mercy?
Yeah, but honestly, I got up the next day, and it was really hard to get out of the door and get down there to go downtown. I was just like I just kind of want to sit here and just maybe watch it on the network on the network or, to get in an Uber and drive all the way down there. But, I'm glad I did. And, cause then, we'll talk about No Mercy in a little bit, but afterwards, Sam Roberts obviously does the pregame show, right? Mm-hmm. And so afterwards, Sam and I met Jim Norton down at the Sirius building in Wilshire, and then we recorded the morning show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was like it was like only about 6 hours pre-recorded. It wasn't like we recorded it 2 days,
Yeah.
So it was just delayed a few hours. That's
Oh my
all.
gosh, I love Jim Norton.
Oh, it was so funny.
Hilarious.
Yes, and then, which reminds his character Chip Chipperson. Have you ever heard it?
Ooh.
Anyways, he has a really wacky character, and he came here, and he has a Chip Chipperson podcast, and so he did it from here.
Oh yeah,
on Monday.
I heard about
Yeah.
that. I heard he was in character.
Yeah, and some of the girls, some of the girls here, some of the ladies, Roxy, Stryer, anyways, some of the ladies that here at AfterBuzz were there, and
It's an interesting show.
yes,
They all had a good time.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Anyway, we what's been going on?
Do we want to talk about No Mercy,
Yeah,
or
let's
do we
talk
want
about
to...
No Mercy.
Should we get into that, or is there anything else to talk about first? I mean,
Chronologically, it'd be like No
That would
Mercy
be the
and then
one.
the invasion.
yeah,
and then
okay,
one.
all right.
So,
So let's talk
No
about No
Mercy.
Mercy.
Well, I thought No Mercy was a really good show, honestly. I mean, aside from the main event, I thought the show was a lot of fun. There was a lot of shocking things. Of course, Enzo taking the cruiserweight title was very shocking. I really enjoyed the Cena Roman Reigns match. I thought I had a great time. I know some people were like, ugh, but for me, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great, And Cesaro getting his teeth knocked out was
Oh my
insane.
gosh, that was
I
crazy.
mean, I don't know. It was quite an adventure, honestly. I thought this was a fun show for LA, considering we hadn't had a pay-per-view, I believe, all year, if I'm correct here. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great show.
Yeah, I was sitting there during the tag title match. I was sitting there at the gorilla position next to Triple H, and and next to him is Vince, and so Hunter's telling me about. I can't remember what exactly he was talking to me about at that moment, but that's when Cesaro hit the post, and all of a sudden his teeth are gone, and so
Still wrestling.
yeah, and Hunter's talking to me and not paying attention, and Vince is like, "Hey, you're the headset, goddammit."
Oh my god. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know if I think they said that they were either going to replace his teeth, but now they're thinking about maybe like trying to
Pull
save
them
his
out.
teeth. I don't know, but I mean, if I were him, I'd be freaking out, but I'm sure he's not freaking out about it. But
Well, what
I
are you
mean, it's
gonna do?
crazy.
Well, they
True.
said-
It's too late. I mean,
They said his teeth went like into the gums.
Yeah.
So what he probably can do is they can do like veneers, so like attach a veneer to the teeth. So I mean, because he's still gonna wrestle, so they might break again anyway. So
wow. Well, I mean, I didn't mean to jump jump that far into the
No,
show.
I thought that was the best
my
match
gosh.
of the
It
entire
was.
pay-per-view by
Yeah,
far.
it was.
It
Yeah.
was
Most
a
entertaining.
good event on the whole. Just being there was a great event.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it
Okay.
a lot. So,
All right.
but you only want to go by match?
Well, I think talking about the Cesaro situation. So you're backstage. Vince is freaking out. What are they saying? Are
Well,
they
he's not
like?
freaking out. He just was like, wasn't happy. Well, because here's the deal. That blood policy is like you start bleeding, the match gets stopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's what happened at NXT.
it's happened before, yeah. And on a house show, let alone on pay-per-view and, all of that. But, so I think they were just trying to salvage the match without having to stop it because they had, plans, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Insane.
Well, what did you guys think about the main event?
Yeah.
I think it was
I
a little
don't know.
shocking.
I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I was thinking about this, before the show, and even like heading up. I'm like, well, how do I talk about this on the show, like, and do it, like, I was just really, really let down by that, and I can't imagine, like.
Did you think Braun was gonna win, or did you?
Yeah. Did I think Braun was gonna win?
Yeah.
No, I did not. No, and he shouldn't have. That wasn't the point. It was just he just got beat with one F5. And okay, I mean Brock. It's a good idea to give Brock a strong win, but like that's not where I would have done that.
Yeah.
That just, to me, it felt like it wasted a main event that down the road could have drawn like a lot bigger numbers.
Yeah.
And they just kind of flushed it down the toilet.
The weird part about this was that this was during the moment of the match where I felt like, people were kind of like, you could be looking around. Some people could have been on their phone. And like when it ended, I was just like, wait, what? Like, this is it? And even afterwards, everyone was just standing there and people didn't know whether or not to go home after this. They were just like, okay, this is it. What's happening here? So that was the bad part, I think. But I mean, it still doesn't. And this was the match that I feel like most people were looking forward to on this card.
Absolutely.
I personally was. So I was really, really
It's
disappointed.
honestly the only match that, if you ask me what's on the show, that was the only match that really came to mind, unless I really thought about it. It was, as far as big matches go, it was a one-match show.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I take that back. Roman and Cena.
Cena was a good one too.
Yeah.
I think this pay-per-view was like, oh, it kind of looks cool, but when that was announced, everyone's like, oh, we have to go to No Mercy to see this match.
Yeah.
And when I saw how much time they had, I knew it'd be short, but I didn't know it'd be that short, like one F5 and it was done. Especially in the match prior, attitude adjustment off the second rope, and then two more, and Reigns still kicked out, and then one F5, and Braun's done. So it was just like weird, like finishers being finishers. Yeah, that's cool, but when in the match before it took 3 and the guy still wasn't done, but one F5 and he's done. Same with Joe. Joe took one F5 and he was done. I felt so bad for the people I came with. Just went and got a full beer. Took like 2 sips and the match ended. And they're like, the match is over? And then, people were waiting for JoJo to announce, like, thank you guys, please come back, we'll be back for this, and show's over. Because everyone's like, wait a minute.
I think they even played Braun's music afterwards, and people who were already walking out were like, wait, something else is going to happen? No, he's just walking out of, the ring. So I think that it was kind of a letdown for everybody, but it wasn't enough to say, like, oh, this pay-per-view was bad. No, because it was a great pay-per-view, I think.
Yeah. And the women's match was really good. I really enjoyed it. I wanted Nia to win. I wanted her to take the powerbomb to the outside, sneak in right at the end, and drop a leg and just steal a victory.
Well, I was shocked. I don't know how you guys felt. I thought Nia Jax was more over here in LA than she's been in any other city that they've been to. I was wondering. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that Nia was this over until like I'm sitting here experiencing it. I mean, I was definitely rooting for Alexa Bliss, but nonetheless, I thought that was actually pretty shocking for the women's match.
I like Nia. I was hoping she would win.
What do you think the setup is for? Like, I don't see it. I feel like, she's getting chances. We're excited she might get the opportunity. Excited that she might actually get the belt, and then she's like, nope. It seems like they kick her back a couple. Like, do you think they have a storyline set up for her, or are they trying to figure out what to do with her, or?
I don't know. I have no idea what they have going on right now with all of that. it does get frustrating for the fans of any superstar when they're, like I'm going to use Bray Wyatt, for example, who's so good. I'm such a big fan of his, and they've just been using him. I mean, he's been losing, and people who say, wins and losses don't matter. That's bullshit. They matter. They don't. They matter. That's something that's said when it's convenient. I'm sorry. There's some people that I love dearly that probably don't like me saying that, but it's bullshit. Wins and losses do matter.
Does it do something for the psyche if you're just set up to lose so many times, and then you're going out there and you're knowing, well, I haven't had a win in a long period of time? Does that do something to the psyche, or
it can if you let it? And that's the key to dealing with that and getting through that is not letting it show when you walk through the curtain. You still have to go out.
The boo-boo face?
Yes. You can't go out of that curtain with, I'm going to get beat tonight again, look on your face. Because I see it all the time. A lot of people can't spot it, but they still spot it on a subconscious level.
Yeah,
That's with a lot of things that, you don't notice like consciously, like, you can't like articulate, this is what's going on, but on a subconscious level, we notice these things.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since this was a match that a lot of people are like, oh, we're seeing it again. So that obviously must affect, the guys were like, oh, you guys are not excited for our match, but,
Yeah. And we can talk about Bray Wyatt and Balor and, I just said I'm a big fan of Wyatt's, and I'm a huge fan of Finn Balor. It was just, it was hard to care about the match just because of the build-up. Is that just me?
No,
it's a lot of people, I think.
I wanted the Demon.
And it's not either one of those guys'
Yeah, why
faults.
didn't he?
I wanted the Demon so bad, and especially when it started and he didn't come out as the Demon,
Yeah.
and then he got hurt and they were walking him to the back. I was like, this is going to be so cool. He's going to go back. He's going to come out in the Demon paint. We're going to have a great match. Nope.
Yeah,
It's like, well,
is that his choice, or is that
weird.
the TV? Like, what's the?
I think they want to save it for big events, but I thought this would a big event to do it at. When's the next one? Survivor Series would be their next big event. technically.
Well, that's technically a bigger event than a
No Mercy.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the face paint, especially with his whole promo of, you think the man created the demon, but the demon's inside the man
Right.
situation.
And
Why
then-
not?
That's what I was
break out
expecting.
the paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, he Balor had some blue trunks on. I was asking him about that. He told me the story, and now I brain farted and can't remember what the story of the blue
I
trunks
thought they were
were.
like gray.
I
or
thought they were silver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They
were.
look blue to me.
He was wearing baby blues, huh?
Yeah, they were an interesting cut.
But that was the pay-per-view for the most part. I think.
Yeah.
What do you think of Cena and Roman Reigns?
It wasn't what it was. It was a hell of a match, but it wasn't on the level that both of those guys can. I've seen both of those guys in amazing matches, and that wasn't up there in that category.
Do you think they're saving that for Mania?
I have no idea. I just, what I was wanting to see. This is just me. After John raised his hand at the end, like I would have loved to see just Reigns just like,
Sock him.
take it, and then like as he's walking out, turn around and just
Level him.
beat the shit out of
would've
him,
been
leave him
awesome.
laying.
Because that would have been awesome, because it
Yeah.
would have extended the story. Like, I feel like, okay, they built it up, we got to this point, and it's such a great, between the two of them,
Yeah.
they could have extended it even more. Like, I definitely want to see this fight here, but I would have probably preferred to see it in another pay-per-view or even WrestleMania, because it seems like they can build it up. But when he did that, and then John Cena was sitting in the ring, everybody thought he was going to retire. I'm just like, oh, this is the end of the story. Period.
Someone on Twitter pointed out it's much like Rock and Cena, but the roles are reversed now.
Mm-hmm.
Like John is
Yeah.
now playing the role of The Rock, and
Yeah.
Roman is now playing.
That's
the
a
role
fair
of
way
John.
of putting it.
Well, they showed like that on Raw the next day when they were showing like the videos on like how everything was kind of playing out. That's the video that they ended up showing too. So
Well, even then, I think the crowd kept going back and forth because at one point they were like, "You both suck." I thought that was hilarious.
And then Cena was
by the
ready
way.
to leave.
Yeah.
That was so funny. He was like, I'll leave.
So
right
they
now.
were going back and forth. 1 minute loving John Cena because I realized it was Roman Reigns, and then the next it's like, no, I used to hate John Cena, so I'm going back to hating John Cena. So it was just all over the place. I couldn't even read the crowd at some points. I was like, what are we
I have
doing?
no idea
So
what's going on.
I know we're booing Roman Reigns, but what's going on here with John Cena? Which I thought that was pretty exciting, and I almost feel like they kind of didn't like Cena was a little like, dude, I'm supposed to be on your side now, you know, like you guys are supposed to cheer for me now, and this isn't happening. So that was interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure what's going to happen with John. I'm sure he's going
to go shoot Bumblebee, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Well, he did a interview after, I think a couple of interviews after that, and he's like, he's 40. And he's like, there's only so much, you know, so far I can do with my body, etc. So it's probably going to be slowing down, and then...
He deserves it, if that's what he wants to do. So, here's the thing is like the passing the torch thing, like, it doesn't work like it used to. Like, it doesn't guarantee that people are going to, you know, embrace the person that the torch gets passed to. Mm-hmm. So, but that being said, you know, at the same stage, in careers or in pushes, you know, once they decided they were going to run with these guys, mm-hmm. I think that Roman's right around the same, you know, he's pretty much where he should be if you're comparing him to John, because you know they had to force John down people's throats for quite a while. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just the way it was. I mean, anybody that like takes exception with me saying that isn't really like, you know, good with the truth or very honest about things.
Well, that's what I wanted to know. Like, how long do they push people? So, for instance, like Jason Jordan, like it feels like, you know, with the storyline and his father and all this other stuff, you're like, okay, well, they keep pushing him. Like, how long? And it doesn't seem like the audience is really liking him.
Right.
Either way.
Yeah.
So how long, is there a certain amount of time where they're like, okay, this is not gonna...
It depends on whose idea it is.
Well, and what's the main goal? I personally think the main goal for Jason Jordan is to turn him heel and have him face Kurt Angle. Mm-hmm. So this is right what they want. They want to keep pushing him, and everyone just like, oh, we liked him at first, we were happy,
right,
and now we just hate him, and we hate him more, and we hate him more.
It doesn't even feel like
eventually he's gonna snap.
Hate them. It just feels like, whatever. But it feels like there's an irritation. It's like, okay, why are you pushing in? So I see what you're saying now. That makes sense.
I think that whatever irritation will eventually be like, damn it, why is Jason Jordan back on TV? Why is he in this match again? And we've seen this match tons of times.
He's excellent. It's just that it's not, you know, fans don't want to be told who they're supposed to like or not like these days. They just don't take kindly to that. You have to fool them.
Isn't that how it's always been, though?
No, no.
Really?
No, not at all. Maybe since you've been a wrestling fan, you know, but you're younger than I am.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I was younger and even first starting wrestling, they said, this is the guy, and people went, okay. Like freaking, you know.
Why do you think that was, though?
That's just because that was the fans weren't as
in the know, maybe?
In the know, all of that. Like, they just, you know, there wasn't as... They just showed up to watch their wrestling, you know, and they just wanted to... They didn't want to overanalyze it, and it's just different now.
They just believe.
With everything, not just wrestling.
So much. Just taking wrestling as far as what you see, you know, per week, WWE and everything else, and then you have all the separate wrestling shows, and then you have, you know, the podcast, and you have the interviews and all this other stuff. Like, you as a fan can get really into it, and then you can, you know, get more annoyed.
And it's not just wrestling. Like, you know, it used to be like anything that the powers that be like decided they're going to push on the public would you know, would gobble it up. Because I mean, I remember there used to be when I was a kid, three TV stations, well, 3 networks, and I know I'm sounding like one of those people, like, back in my day, there were 3, you know, there were 4, maybe 5 total with the UHF station in any given market, and you know, whatever was on there is what you consumed. Yeah, you consumed what was there to be, and there wasn't a lot, you know.
Well, do you think social media also plays a role in that factor? I know I heard Nick talk about this in other interviews, but what a heel on TV is a dirty, nasty, rotten heel, and then you go on Twitter and he's like, oh, I'm a super happy family guy, and I'm going to go do Make-A-Wishes, and I'm going to go do all this stuff. It takes away from the character, and it's hard to believe and
that's true, but I mean, are we going to not tell people that we're playing a character now and then try to, I mean, I can't have it both ways.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So either just don't, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know about that with the whole social media thing. I don't know how to, you know, there's some people are like, oh, you need to keep kayfabe on social media or whatever. I don't know if that's really, like, I don't think that's anywhere near the top of the list of problems with wrestling. I think it's the product. You can't blame the crowd for being for being discriminating as far as, I don't mean racially discriminating, right? But, you know, as far as what they like or what they're going to accept. Can't blame them for wanting the best and knowing what a good product is. Can't blame them. So no, it's not social media's fault. I don't think so at all. It's our fault.
Do you want to talk about your friend Enzo and Neville, about his match?
It was all right.
I
It was
love
all
Kind of
right.
surprising.
Yeah, no, it was, you know,
We should tell that story.
it's just that, you know, there was no, wasn't a lot, like, no, never mind, I'm not going to say it.
Well, so after the pay-per-view, I met up with Denise, and
Yeah.
she was hanging out where all the wrestlers drive out. And every wrestler's like not really hiding in the car, but you could see that they just don't want to get bothered.
Right.
So they drive out, and then here comes Enzo
With
in a
his
freaking
belt.
convertible, holding the belt up, just like,
course.
yeah, what's up?
Making a big show of it. They have like, they're recording it.
Yeah.
It's insane. The fans
Oh
are
my
going
gosh.
crazy. You know what? I loved it. I thought
I
it was
don't-
really funny.
I don't have a problem
So
with that
fit
at all.
him.
That
Yeah.
part's
Definitely
good.
fit
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was,
Yeah.
and he just drove off, zooming, and you could still see the belt from like far away going under the underpass. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So, yes, Enzo rubs people the wrong way. Big time. That being said, still on my team.
He gets a
Because of
reaction.
shit
Yeah.
like that.
Well, I mean, then they brought it on to the next day. Like, I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's believable that he does rub people the wrong way, and then they
No, it's
bring
100% true.
So then they bring it in, and then the next day on Raw, like, that was kind of awesome how they brought the
Yeah.
storyline in as
Yeah.
well. So, I mean, I'm a fan of Enzo.
I kind of actually like how they're doing this.
I do too.
I do. So, you know, there's people that are all up in arms and
Like, he's killing the cruiserweight
No,
division. It's
he's
worse than
not.
Hornswoggle winning the title. And
no,
all that
that's
stuff.
bullshit. That's bullshit. Sorry, that's bullshit. It's going to help. It might be it might feel funky for those that, like, you know, think that it should stay like,
Purist, maybe.
yeah, he's not a cruiserweight style wrestler. So what? There's plenty of other cruiserweight style wrestlers in that division.
I do
You
like
know?
in his promo on Raw where he's like, you know, look what time it is. This is the last hour of
Yeah.
Raw. This is the first time, like, cruiserweight. That was it would hurt if I were one of it. I felt it both ways, so I definitely love that, like, how they're doing the storyline with this.
It gave that believability to, like, wait, what he's saying is really true right
Yeah.
now, and
And I
he's
love
got
it.
a point.
I had something I saw, and it was like it was a backstage segment with Kurt Angle and Enzo, and at the end of it, Kurt says, "Can I give you some friendly advice from one?"
yeah.
And he goes, "I'm good."
That was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well-
So that was No Mercy.
That was No Mercy. Do you want to move on? I like your shirt, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
did you
you.
wear that for a specific reason?
No, but I guess it's
Fitting.
Yeah.
sort of, I guess, for the next thing we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
Bullet Club invasion of Raw.
They crashed
which I
the
thought
party.
I don't think. Well, from what I read, Vince wasn't too amused.
Yeah?
No, but
Like in a good way, too amused, or like?
no, wasn't too amused.
Okay.
Didn't think it was funny or anything along those lines.
Well, yeah, I could see why he wouldn't. It's not part of his product. It's just something totally different, and they have a huge movement. So I
And
mean,
then, and I've read people go, "Oh, it's just a copy of what DX did." So what? So what? I think it was brilliant idea.
So for the
it might
people-
not have been an original idea, but it was it was really smart of them.
So for the people who were living under a rock when this happened, so there was an appearance at Hot Topic with the Bullet Club, and it was a Hot Topic in Ontario where the Raw for that day happened to be. So they decided to go over there with a mass of people and
Well, we had
a little
Kenny
party.
on the show, and we were talking about doing Hot Topic spot shows and
Yes.
pop-ups like that. I heard Matt Jackson say they didn't even tell the Hot Topic in Ontario that they were going. They just decided to go.
Good.
So
That's
that
how you
might
do
have been,
it.
Yeah, that might have been emotion, and who knows? They're like, hey, we're already here. Raw's right there. Let's rent a stretch limo and just drive over there.
I saw a tweet, and I saw that they were going to be at that Hot Topic, and I saw that it was in Ontario, and immediately I was like, it's right down the road from Raw.
Interesting.
So it was something that, like, came into my mind before they even did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you did it, you said you wish you would have went inside.
Yeah.
That should have been the first thing you did.
Yeah.
What do you think as far as them doing it? Should they have done anything different? Should they have tried to go backstage? Did they do it right the way they did it? Should they have all been in full gimmick?
I don't know, because, I mean, it was somewhat impromptu, I think, on their part. At least that's the way it came off. So, I don't know. I think they got it done. They got what they needed done. It would have been fascinating to see what would happen if they would have made it inside.
Yeah.
And they also gave a speech from the president from Independence Day outside.
Yeah, Bill Pullman's speech from
my
Independence
gosh.
Day. Yeah.
It was so funny because you could see the fans start to, wait a minute, do I know this? I
Yeah.
think I know what he's saying. And then towards the end, they're like, oh yeah, we know this speech.
Yeah.
It was great.
I thought this was awesome. I mean, I know that obviously, like you said, some people may not be happy with it, like in the WWE. But the thing about this that I thought is that it's kind of, in a sense, kind of flattering that they're doing a spoof of something that this company did first,
someone
I mean, yeah, it kind of, people can say, obviously, it made them look bad in terms of the fan that said, oh, he got the free tickets for the WWE, and that made them, look uncool. But it's the same thing that happened, originally.
Same thing we did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it's a little bit flattering because obviously, they're fans of the company and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I thought it was pretty cool. The funny thing, though, that I started thinking about this was, so they posted it in the morning on Twitter that they were going to be there, right? I was wondering, like, how many people just decided to call in sick to their job and be like, I'm not going today. I'm going to go to Hot Topic. Well, not telling the boss that. I'm going to go to Hot Topic and I'm going to be there for them, and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of funny.
So many people. I had actually, because I do Hollywood tours for TMZ sometimes. I mean, I had a lot of people from No Mercy that were on the bus, and they were like, they're not supposed to even be in the States. They came from other states to watch WWE, and it's just, if people don't, if your boss doesn't even know what's going on in wrestling, then yeah, just make up a story and go. You're a fan, why not?
Exactly.
Once in a lifetime opportunity.
I thought it was great, and it just helps move that, like you would say, move the needle forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going to happen next time? They're all in the same town together. And I loved all the, Finn Balor, are you in there? Carl Anderson, are you in there? Luke Gallows, calling out for their
gosh.
buddies and stuff. That was
It was
great
just
to me.
it was a parody of what we did, and that was what it was intended to be.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, with the Independence Day speech,
Yeah.
to basically doing the same thing that we did, and even the free tickets thing. I didn't see that part. They did that.
Yeah. They interviewed a fan or something.
Yeah, because I told you about what we did with the free tickets thing at the WCW invasion.
No.
They had the big marquee outside the building, and it said WCW Nitro, and then there was another event there that was right after it, and it said free tickets. So I just said, hey, why don't you take the WCW Nitro on there and film that, and then film the free tickets part, and then splice it together. Yeah. Shit, I just spit out my cough drop.
No, honestly, and I feel like this was also the best time for them to do it. I mean, they're so hot right now. The Bullet Club, the Young Bucks, all of them. They're hot. This is the time to do it. I feel like a lot of times we've been seeing a lot of things not happen at the moment that they're hot in wrestling, and then they happen afterwards. But no, this is happening, I think, at a great time, and it was exciting to see. And I'm proud of their creativity. And I got sucked into the YouTube channel Being the Elite yesterday. I was just watching all these videos, and they have some good stuff on there.
TNA tried to do this once to WWE, it just didn't work as well. With Road Dogg and Abyss and Conan and R-Truth, I think.
Well, and then when I came into TNA with Scott and Keven and Bischoff and Hogan were there, I said, if you guys, really wanted to fire the first shot in the war, like they said, I said you'd go and invade them. I even told Bischoff, I said, why don't you give them a taste of their own medicine? And that nobody wanted to do it. So That would have been a big they missed a big opportunity there, I think. Things might have went a little bit different. Probably not, since that company was so mismanaged. It's not even funny. But all right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with
Magnus.
Magnus. I don't know why I had a brain fart there. All right, be right back.
What's up, party people? Roxy Stryer here from The Tomorrow Show with Keven Undergaro. We're your twice-weekly broadcast of one man's midlife crisis and the mad millennials in Star Trek uniforms that follow him.
And I'm one of those millennials, Lauren Magrasso here. We've had some amazing guests like Russell Simmons, Ileana Douglas, and Craig Gass. Coolio, right?
Christian Blatt in the house to tell you to go to thetomorrowshow.com to check us out. We're live every Monday and Thursday from 10 to midnight Eastern. That's thetomorrowshow.com. Be there or be square, whatever that means.
Welcome back to X-Pac 12360. Joining us on Skype right now, he was a former TNA and Impact and GFW World Heavyweight Champion. His name is Nick Aldis, and he's known as Magnus. Thank you for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I was just telling them that, you know, when I blew my bicep and my pec tendon, you were my partner that night.
Yeah.
That was a bad one, man. It didn't look that bad at the time, did it?
The only thing I really remember about that, but prior to the injury, was you kind of saying that you were a little bit, like you were worried about it and it was a bit dinged up. And then, of course, Murphy's Law, like the guys we were working with in that tag, you kind of went through that particular spot with them very, very carefully and said, it's really important that you feed in like right away and like don't delay, because if you do, I'm gonna have to come flying over and like run into the rope and this and that, and of course like put it in the universe.
The guy, did he not do exactly what I told him not to?
Yeah.
And that in the end, bless his heart. And I was hot, right? I mean, when you were getting ready to make the hot tag, I already knew the guy wasn't gonna. He was outside the ring still. Could you? And I was yelling, "Get in the effing ring!"
It was one of those moments where you feel bad for the guys, but at the same time you're going like, come on guys, like there's no excuse here. Like it wasn't like there was no room for error on that. Like he told you exactly how to feed it, and it's just it wasn't a difficult thing. It's just having that high standard. Like, and it's just, I think that's just when they haven't worked with the guy at your level, like they just don't realize that, especially guys from your era, like they just had no idea like what kind of pace you guys used to cut. So they were just, everything's a bit more methodical, and they were just kind of like da-di-da, like come fly. And it was, and as soon as you went flying over there, I saw you like hit the top rope, and you kind of mashed into him and the rope at the same time, and I just heard you go like, God damn, and I was like, oh shit.
Yep. Yeah, I knew right away. But then we got back to the dressing room, and I got hot, right? But then I kind of calmed down, and I'm taking my time, and I'm trying to explain to them things, and meanwhile, my freaking arm and my shoulder and everything are starting to blow up, and I have a 3.5 hour drive back.
Oh, it was brutal. Like you could see it, like it was starting to go purple. It reminded me of when I tore my bicep down in Mexico, and it was the same thing. It was like it was swollen, and then it was red, and then within like an hour it was purple. And you start going like, ooh, this is good. Can I take my favorite? Like it was bad, but I was secretly laughing on the inside, and I can tell you about it now.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But there's one. I was laughing so hard on the inside. You were giving the guy the Bronco bust in the corner and cutting a promo on him at the same time.
Yeah.
You're like this, like you're giving the Bronco bust, and you stupid mother effer. Yeah. I told you not to do that. Like, in the corner, like, that's great.
Geez. Anyway, hey, when did we first meet? I always ask people that. Like, I think it was TNA in Orlando, right?
Yeah. It had to be probably around 2011-ish, because I started in TNA in 2009, and I think that.
When did the Bischoff Hogan and all that stuff happen? Because those years are a little bit sketchy to me. I can't place where I was to what year. Like, so. When was that? I
think they came in at the beginning of 2010. So it probably was 2010 actually. Because you and Scott came in the same day, right? On the same time.
Either that or maybe like the next week. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. So I remember running into you obviously meeting you at the show and then running into you at the ale house. Because back then, like, Keven was the first sort of real big name guy who sort of took a liking to me and took me under his wing and would come out with me and stuff like that and, educate me at the bar and stuff.
Yeah.
So they had that little bit of a cushion when I met you where I was like, okay, I'm friends with Keven, so it's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. You're friends with Kev. That means you're friends with me.
Well, I was intimidated, because for me, like I was born in '86, and it was like I got thrown in at the deep end so much at TNA, like, and the first thing I'm doing there is I'm surrounded by like Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, Booker T, and Scott Steiner, and Keven, and Sting, and it is just like I'm going, like, I don't know. It's really hard to go straight from, meeting them for the first time to then trying to be like a peer, because you don't know how much you're supposed to sort of act cool, but not act like, but not look like you think you know what you're doing. It's a really hard kind of thing to navigate at first.
Yeah. But I want to go back before then, because I was reading that when you first started that you were teaming with like Doug Williams and stuff like that, but like I don't know who trained you.
I started with the Knights. I started with Yeah. So I'm from Norfolk, so like it's funny because Norfolk is a small county in the east of England, and no one really of any merit comes from there very often, and then suddenly, like, arguably, I guess at one point at least, like the TNA champion and the WWE Women's Champion were both from sleepy old Norfolk, so it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I broke in with Ricky and Julia.
Huh? We're having a little bit hard time hearing you, Nick.
Oh, sorry. I might have had my. Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
You also trained with Harley Race, right?
I did train with Harley, but I came and did like one of his camps. He would do these week-long camps. So I made a little trip of it once I'd been working probably a year and a bit, and then I came over and did Harley's camp, and then also bounced around a couple other places, Atlanta and some other stops to just to sort of try and get a bit of seasoning in different areas, because the American style was, I knew that was what you were going to have to do if I was going to get on TV and get a shot anywhere, because and I knew that a lot of the training I'd had been much more focused on mat wrestling and what they call chain wrestling, which British wrestlers hate. They hate, like Robbie Brookside's always like, it's not chain wrestling, it's just wrestling.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing that Regal says.
Yeah, and but that style, right? The sort of exchanging holds and all the rest of it. And so that part of it, I felt like I had an adequate knowledge of it. But what I knew I needed to work on was like my footwork and my explosiveness and my bumps and all that kind of thing,
Gotcha.
Bumping and feeding, because I knew that even then I knew that my role was most likely going to be a heel for most of my career. So I knew that bumping and feeding was sort of the main skill set required. So
you think that, in your opinion, like the bumping and feeding aspect is different between the American style and the British style?
I think that not so much now. I think that I just think that the places where I learned the most of the guys were teaching, they were not themselves that well schooled in that style, because they had come from a different era.
Sure.
So it wasn't like I was trying to, it wasn't like I was, we knew what we had to do. I just knew that the best way to do it would be to surround myself with the best people at doing it, which was the Americans.
Sure. Did you ever work the rounds? Matches and rounds? How'd you enjoy that?
There was a promotion down in the south of England called Premier Promotions.
Oh, is that Dixon?
That wasn't Dixon. That was his name was John Fremantle, the promoter, and he would exclusively still do the traditional shows in rounds. And it was actually one of my first, I think it was my second or third ever singles match I ever had was with Doug Williams in a rounds match. Yeah. And that was kind of the thing that, at least in part of the UK scene, kind of helped get me on the map, was that Doug kind of endorsed me after that and said, he had come to Dropkicks, which is the school I was training at, and he had come as a guest trainer because it was in a good spot. It was near London, so you had a lot of people that would come in and out. Like Steve Gray would come, and Johnny Saint would come, and different guys would come in and out all the time. So you got this nice kind of sprinkling of knowledge from all these different guys, which, as you know, is like the best way to learn. And Doug would come every now and then, and I rolled around with him. And obviously, at that time, the thing that got me more bookings than anyone else was from that school was just because I had a look. You know what I mean? Like I had a bit of a physique. So, and then Doug said, "I'm going to try and get you booked with this promotion. Like, and we can do a match in rounds, and I can, lead you through it, hold your hand and stuff." And after that, it was, that was when things started to pick up for me. So it was kind of funny how then a few years later it came sort of full circle where, in order for Doug to get an opportunity with TNA, they were looking for a tag partner for me. So it was kind of cool that they went with him. Yeah,
I like the rounds. I wish that there would be that would be a thing in the UK still. Like you don't see it as much. Like you were talking about the styles, they've kind of meshed a lot, right? And a lot of the promoters in the UK kind of Americanized when it came to that. Yeah. The thing is when World of Sport came off television it finally came off for good in the 80s. Like it had been slowly sort of getting like worse time slots and this and that, and it was losing its luster. And the problem is that what was happening was that with the advent of satellite, the audience, the thing that British wrestling never did was they didn't move with the times in terms of production value. Right. So no one was paying attention to the fact that in the ring you had like Dynamite Kid, Fit Finley, Rollerball Mark Rocco, all these guys who like innovated this style that's still prevalent today. Way ahead of their time, but the production value wasn't there, so it was just a dingy hall with a small little ring and sort of very 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 old-fashioned sort of presentation. Once they saw the WWF, it was just like lights out for kids because they were just like, wow, like look at these guys with huge muscles and all these lights and fireworks and this and that. And it would, so all the promoters, especially like Dixon and guys like that, who their focus was making money. They didn't, they weren't marks. So it's not really the right word, but they weren't sort of purists. They weren't just going to hold on to it for the sake of it. The guys who wanted to make money, Dixon was just like, all right, this is what they want. I'm going to give them that. You were just mentioning the size of the ring, and yes, that did stand out when it doesn't look good, but there's better action that happens in a smaller ring, Nick. The action is a lot tighter. It forces guys to have good footwork for sure. Yeah, so I kind of wish that the rings would be a little smaller, just for the action. Do you? Yeah, I kind of do, man. I always enjoyed working in a smaller ring, Nick. Yeah, I didn't mind the bigger ones either. I mean, I'm fine in either way, but I didn't mind the smaller rings at all.
Like an 18 or a 16?
Either one, man.
Because normals are 20.
In England, like 16 was probably the normal, and then sometimes it would even be smaller than that. Yes. But like 18 was large, and there was never a 20, or 20.
And I was talking about rounds and how the rounds were something that made British wrestling distinct. Also, the yellow and red card, and you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Public warnings.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely some elements, and I can say this now, and I hate to be one of those guys that said I said that we should do this, and I said we should do that. But when I had the title in TNA. And I was working a program with Joe, which I loved, you know what I mean, because it was I just loved working with him, especially as a heel. One of the things that I had suggested was let me work a match with Joe in rounds. Yes. Like let's do a match in rounds. And do you remember when Regal worked with Jericho and they did like the Duchess of Queensberry rules?
Yes.
and the whole gimmick was that like he was the only one who knew the rules, so like Jericho would hit him with something, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I've just been informed that under Duchess of Queensberry rules, this is not allowed," And I was like, we could sort of work something similar where we did it a couple of times we did sort of something similar on house shows where I would go out and roll out and demand that like Earl Hebner give Joe a public warning and stuff like that, and then Earl would be like, "What the hell's that?" Like, just give it to him, So we tried to get there, but I thought it would have made great TV because the thing with rounds is you can create that drama of he hasn't beat. Oh, the time ran out in round. You know, so as you see now in UFC.
And you can do like small sets of heat and small comebacks, and it just gives to me. It just gives it an opportunity to have a lot more, peaks and valleys and whatnot in the matches.
Totally. Yeah. I tell you what else it did for me, especially I didn't work a ton of matches in round, but I had enough to understand, to get a feel for it. And the other thing it does is it allows you the chance to ad lib, but without hanging you out to dry.
Right.
So you could have like one spot planned for a round, or one fall, and that would be like, and basically the veteran would go, okay, we'll just keep working around, and if you get lost or it's not going well, we'll just go to the fall.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like you had that safety net of like, all right, let's see if you can think for yourself and ad lib and handle it, and if you can't, like, it doesn't matter because we'll just go to the fall, or we'll just, we'll only have a couple of minutes here, and then the round will end anyway, and then we can, kind of reset.
And then and to go what you're saying, like if the crowd's not buying what you're selling, you have time that you can reset.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was that something you learned in the Dixon camps, as far as crowd work? When the crowd's not buying what you're selling, you have to change your...
Yeah, 100%. I think that if you look at, there's a huge amount of the guys who, especially ones who had staying power on the WWE roster, like look at Sheamus, like what a career he's had.
Yep.
I know that Daniel Bryan really credits his time on the camps to sort of get him to that giving him that skill set to work the crowd rather than just be a great wrestler, which he already was. He got that final piece of the puzzle. Just for me, there was just these, just that repetition, 6 days a week of all Brian cared about was that they were making noise from start to finish. So you were sent out there and you just had to work the crowd, like almost to the point where it was, too much, right? Like most guys would watch it now and go, oh, they're working the crowd too much, they're hot dogging. Yeah,
but here's the thing, man. Like, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just thought of something when PWG Battle Bola was happening. I was talking to Flash Morgan Webster. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I was noticing he was on the apron during the tag match, and most guys sit on the apron and they're just catching their breath and resting, and he's working that apron harder than the guys working in the ring.
Right.
And I was like, man, good for you. That's how you do it. And he goes, I learned that in the summer camps, or whatever you put it.
You had Marty on your show recently, right?
Yeah.
Marty Skrull, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another perfect example. Like we did the camps, and it was once you do that, like you don't have that fear anymore of you know how to commit. Like you commit to working the audience and talking and being 100% committed to the performance aspect of it rather than just the physical, the physical kind of part of the match, just the fight scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Did they film any of the matches that go on in these camps?
Yeah. Was there any footage, any of that stuff, Nick?
I'm sure there is. I mean, I used to film some of my matches and stuff like that. I mean, but it would all just be I'm sure it would all just be like amateur.
Yeah,
self-done
but it would still be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, I'm sure if you go, especially the guys who get it, like Drew and Sheamus and guys like that who went on, and like Wade Barrett and stuff. I'm sure that they all probably filmed their stuff too. So there's probably some really for diehard fans. There's probably some really interesting 8-man tags, because I remember we'd do a lot of 8-man tags where it'd be like Sheamus, Drew, myself, Stu, and then it would be like Rene Dupree and Pierre Lafitte, and I tagged with
Carl.
Yeah, Carl Ouellette. Yeah, I loved working with him.
Yeah, he's great.
I loved working with him. He was so great. Yeah, so there's interesting combinations.
Rene Dupree, not so much, but anyways.
Well, Nick, prior to your TNA debut, you were part of a UK revival for Gladiators. How did you get involved in that, and how did your pro wrestling training help you with that?
Well, it's interesting we were talking about the camps, because it was because of the camps I actually got that gig too. So a friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine, the UK Pitbulls, who were these two big super heavyweight dudes, they were registered with a couple of agencies, and they would do like periodically they'd do these sort of TV roles where they'd be like, meatheads or like muscle guys, whatever, right? They're big, super heavyweight bald guys. And one of them got a casting brief for this other show, for like it was like a live motorbike stunt show thing. It was sort of like a Mad Max type of live event show, and they were casting they wanted a guy who was tall, but had a good physique and was willing to, if he had a mohawk, great, or if he was willing to shave a mohawk in and have a goatee and stuff, like a Chuck Liddell kind of look, right?
Yeah.
And so my friend Dave sent it to me and said, you should go for this. Like, I'm too fat. He's like, you should do this. And I'm making like 40 quid a night on the camps, right? So this thing was paying like $2,000 for a week for 2 weeks. So I was like, hell yeah, like, okay, cool. So I put in for it, and I got the gig. So it was fun, and it was just, and I basically just had to stand there because they wanted a wrestler because they just wanted someone who could work a crowd, while these guys were doing like this sort of Thunderdome stuff in the background, these like stunt bikes and stuff.
Oh, so you didn't have to get physical with anybody?
No, it was just like, I basically played this role of like I think it was called the judge, and you basically just played this role of like when you go to theme parks and stuff, you see these like stunt, and they have like someone playing a character, and who's kind of like, behold, like, I am the so and so. It was like that kind of stuff, like real cheesy, like.
So is it not like American Gladiators? It's a little bit different.
No.
This is a different show.
It leads to that.
Oh, okay.
The director of that show, after we'd finished, he was like, hey, I have a talent agency too. I don't, I mostly cast stunt guys and stuff, but if you want, like, I could put you on the books. You never know, something might come up. And I said, yeah, sure. And then, just as luck would have it, a couple of months later, the casting thing came through for Gladiators. But the original reason he cast me was that he came to the camps and saw me like work the crowd and cut a promo and stuff, and was like, that's my guy. So it all kind of led to that, and that's how I got the audition and then got the part.
You were the big O Oblivion in UK Gladiators. The challenges that you went through, did they make you go through the same challenges they put the contestants through, or they just want you in tip-top shape so you could take out the contestants?
When you say challenges, do you mean in the auditions and the tryouts?
No, just like on the show itself, when you have to run through like the gauntlet with the guys with the blockers,
crash pads and all that stuff.
We would do that in training, but obviously our role was, we were the other side of the coin, right? So we would practice the events, but from the gladiator side.
Exactly.
Sometimes one of us would play the role of the contender for training or whatever, but no, like, but I do remember the auditions were brutal. Like, they did them at an army barracks. Yeah. Like, they took us to an army barracks, and there was like, me and Bram went to those auditions, and we were like the youngest guys there. I was like 20, and there was all these guys at the auditions, and they were, I mean, some of them I recognized from films and from television and from like Muscle and Fitness and stuff, and I was just going like, oh, I'm gonna get smoked. Like, I'm never gonna get this part. Whatever. Let's just have fun. And I made it through the first round of cuts with the physical stuff. Yeah. And then they broke out cameras, and they just were like putting cameras in people's faces and going, okay, talk, go. And so many of these guys just disintegrated, they just couldn't handle it. Yeah. And that was, luckily for me, that was where they saw something and was like, okay, we can go with this kid. We'll give him a shot.
Did you ever knock the living shit out of anybody when you were doing that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah? Oh, yeah. There was one guy went to the hospital. There was a couple of guys that just, that after you knew you'd messed them up pretty well, and then conveniently the next day they'd be like pulled out with an injury, sure. And they'd have to put someone else in and stuff. But I mean, there was some, the games are pretty controlled and stuff, but I remember I was like undefeated in season 1 on Earthquake, which was like the sort of wrestling kind of, it was like sort of sumo wrestling, but on like a moving platform. It was
like
ridiculous,
hanging from a scaffold, and it rotates, and you got to push the other guy off.
That's interesting.
But like this one kid, and the funny thing was that his last name was McMahon. I smashed him in like 3 seconds, and he hit, like, as he went off, he like his body sort of flipped into one of the steel cables. Yeah. That was holding the thing up, and it like whipped him around like a pretzel, like, and as he went down, ooh, that had to hurt.
So, Nick, did that lead you into getting the gig presenting for the World's Strongest Man or the British Strongest Man stuff?
No, that came from TNA, but Gladiators did lead to me getting the TNA gig.
Were you happy when they gave you the Gladiator gimmick and TNA, and how did you feel when they finally dropped it?
No, I was actually just having this conversation with someone today. I was training with my buddy, and he's a manager at Gold's, and I went into his office and he had like a gladiator helmet sitting there, and I was like, oh, I'm having flashbacks to my awful like first gimmick. And I don't know what happened there, because I still talk to Vince Russo and Dutch and stuff like that, and they all sort of laugh when I go, it wasn't me, it was him. They all sort of passed the buck, right? But it was, I don't know, basically whoever it was obviously hadn't figured out that I was on the British version of American Gladiators. Like, I wasn't a Roman gladiator. You know what I mean? I wasn't playing like a Roman gladiator on a TV show. Anyway, somewhere along that line of communication, it got messed up. And then, so I get to Nashville to do my vignettes, and I'm reading this stuff, and I'm going, what am I doing? Like, and they were like, yeah, you're a Roman gladiator. Like, and I just sort of went, okay. And then they gave me that helmet and stuff, and I just...
Well, that's what happens when you're named Magnus.
And remember when I was called Brutus Magnus at first, right. Which was horrible.
That you mean you didn't come up with that?
You would think that...
Well, tell us who did, please.
Dixie.
Come on, never would have guessed.
Well, that's the word anyway. Right. I remember Dutch came up to me one day and goes, "You know who came up with your name, right?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Dixie," because he obviously knew I hated it. And, but I don't know.
But you were, I was really, I thought that it was a good move making you the champion there, because you weren't. It was like, obviously you weren't a WW. You weren't a Titan guy. You weren't a WWE guy, and you're homegrown, like, I guess considered like a homegrown talent of TNA. Yeah. And I thought you represented them fantastically, and I thought you were an excellent world champion for them.
Oh, thanks.
I really did.
I enjoyed the time that, it was a shame that things were very tumultuous there at that time, and I think I've said this before in interviews. I don't like to dwell on it too much, but I don't feel like I got the chance to really sort of fully realize my potential. But I will say this, that I can sort of hold my head high in the sense that, in terms of business, not immeasurable metrics that like internet fans use and stuff like that, but if the numbers on Spike held, the house shows actually improved, the numbers in the UK went up. Like I felt like I did good business. And even when I dropped the title to EY, I know that to a lot of people they weren't necessarily a fan of that decision, but I did business for him, you know what I mean? Like, and I was proud to do business for him, because that was what I've always believed that the role of the champion was to get yourself to a point where when someone wins, everyone really cares, and that night people were crying, and I just, that's the part of the business that I think doesn't really exist anymore. Like, I feel like people like, you take Hunter as an example, like he sort of accepted the role that like he was on top, but to facilitate the big pop for the baby face that he was going to eventually put over. Right. You know what I mean? And that's I embraced that role. I thought that was what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? And I don't think guys, I can't speak for anyone, but I don't think there are guys who want to do that anymore. I think everybody wants to like get the pop themselves now.
Well, I think how you handed the title off to EY really helped him, and I think that was I don't think he could have had as good of a run with that title if it hadn't have been for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and it was funny to me that the people in the business who went out of their way to sort of compliment me on that part of it afterwards were guys who I really admired and respected, and guys who understood the business. Like, I'll never forget that everyone was like congratulating EY that night, right? Everyone, and that's fine, it is what it is. But I remember Hector Guerrero came up to me, and he had tears in his eyes, and he like shook my hand and said, like, "Young man, like you did him you did him the honors tonight. Like, you should be very proud of that. Like, you did, And I was that meant so much to me, because I was like, to get from somebody like Hector, like one of the Guerreros, right?
That's
like, he's seen everything, and like to get that from him was like, I really appreciated that.
Let's talk about because in the States, TNA, you know, or Impact, whatever you want to call it, you know, people would always, you know, talk about how business was weak here in the States, but in the UK, man, you guys were strong.
They were, yeah.
And I thought you had a ton to do with that. Tons.
Well, again, I appreciate that, and I think that, you know, it's a, you know how it is. It's difficult for me to say it, you know, because there's no way to say it without coming across like you're
tooting your own horn.
Right.
Yeah.
You're
I'll toot it for you. I'll toot it for you next.
You know, I actually had this conversation with Scott not too long ago, and he was like, "Fuck that, toot your own horn."
Yeah,
So
well,
like,
that's I just a little bit different mentality. That's just for me. I don't think it's wrong to do it. I have a hard time doing it myself.
Yeah,
most of the time.
But again, I'll never forget that they put me in a main event with Sting way early in my career. It's like a few months in 2009. Like I just randomly got a main event with Sting, right? Just a sort of throwaway TV main event, just to sort of, because Sting had worked with Joe on the pay-per-view the night before, and they wanted something just to kind of get him back where they wanted him to be, and I understood that. So I understood my role, and I just and that was the first time Keven actually really came up to me and was like, "That was good, you know, like from now on, like, you know, you come with me," kind of thing. But I remember that the next day or the next week, someone said, you know, the ratings in the UK went up 50%, like, because, you know, because they kind of promoted that, you know, you were going to be in the main event with Sting or whatever. And it was, I think for a lot of the UK fans, it was just the fact that WWE had some British guys, but since Davey Boy, they'd never really had anyone who they had really pushed as a star. You know, there were guys there who were just there. And I think to a lot of the fans at that point in the UK, they really started to get this feel that, like, they're going with him. Like this actually, you know, he's not pigeonholed as just a token British guy or whatever. Like, he's in a main event with Sting. Like, that's awesome. You know, he's one of us. And there was this real sort of positive groundswell of support there, which then, I mean, I like to think that it had a little bit to do with the ongoing popularity, but they were popular in the UK before I came along, to be fair. You know, like, that was one of the reasons why they were looking for a British guy.
Well,
like,
why do you think that
slot.
is, Nick? Why do you think that is? Because I've asked other people that, because I'm not a Brit, obviously, and I don't know what about that product appealed to the British folks more than it did the Americans. And what do you think that was?
I think the roster was excellent. I think people forget how good the roster was from in like 2000, you know, from like 2006 through to about 2012. Like, the roster was excellent. I mean, you had AJ, Joe, Daniels, you know, Frankie, and you had the Machine Guns, you know, Jay Lethal, like all these great guys. And then you also had Mick Foley, Sting, Steiner, Keven, you know, Kurt. Like, so there was this really good mix of big stars from the Attitude Era and people who they thought, you know, were going to be the future of the business, which turned out to be true. And also, I think the fact that WWE in the UK is on Sky Sports, which you have to pay to have, whereas TNA was on, first of all, it was on Bravo, which is a channel that doesn't exist anymore, but it was still on like satellite and cable and stuff, but like it was Bravo a free. And now then it was on Challenge, which again was on Freeview, so it was just more accessible, and it had a very good time slot, and it was just one of those things where I think people would just, you know, channel hop, and they would get to it, and they'd be like, oh, cool, Booker T, you know, and Kevin Nash, and I love these guys, like, and there wasn't as much of a stigma of like, oh, it's not WWE, okay, pass, you know, people were just sort of watching it casually. Like, a lot of people would stop me and be like, hey, you're that wrestler from that TNA show, you know, like you could tell they weren't really wrestling fans, they just watched it casually.
Sure. And also Rockstar Spud, that was another guy. It's you and it's you two, and I really think that you guys were like the main reason for that. I really do.
Well, I appreciate that. I think Doug, you know, Doug as well had a good following, and
Doug too. I'm sorry, Doug Williams. Sorry, man, if you're listening.
Well, I think because especially when we were in the tag team, because at first we were, you know, we were a little bit stereotyped, and but we sort of embraced it and had fun with it.
Yeah.
And then, but we got married. You know, we were lucky that we got married to Beer Money, who were the hottest act on the show out of everyone. You know, Bobby and James at that point were untouchable in terms of reaction, and like we had great chemistry with them. And again, we knew our role. Like we would, you know, we facilitated them getting more over. Like that was, you know, and we embraced that. So we do all these house shows in the US, and we do the national anthem, and they'd cut us off and have it, you know, and then and it was just like it was such a night off, and we just had so much fun working with them, and because we got to work with the Dudleys, you know, so we had a very good introduction to the TV audience. And again, I think the Brit audience looked at that and went, "Wow, these guys are killing it," you know, and they're British and they're ours, you know, and neither of us had been in WWE.
Exactly.
So we were sort of looked at as like, "Oh, cool, this is like fresh and new and British, you know, this is really cool."
Yeah, you weren't what some people call retreads.
Yeah, I always used it to my advantage, right? Like, if I had a dollar for every time someone said, "When are you going to WWE?" or like, "Why aren't you in WWE?" or whatever, like I wouldn't have to wrestle ever again. Yeah. You know, but it was, you know, it was just one of those things. Like I wasn't ready for the WWE when I went to TNA. Like I wasn't really ready for TNA. You know, but luckily there was an excellent roster full of guys who wanted to help me get better, because that was the mentality in the locker room at that point. So I was very lucky, and I got thrown in at the deep end. And I'm the kind of person who, you know, I like that sink or swim sort of mentality. Like, go do it. You know what I mean? Figure it out or go home. And I felt like I figured it out quite quickly.
See, I think most people aren't ready for. I think most people aren't ready for TNA or when they get there, or when they go from there to, or when they go from there, ROH or anything else to WWE. I think that it's like you said, it's that sink or swim thing, and the guys that are the money guys are the ones that do not choke under pressure.
Yeah,
and they rise to the occasion.
Yeah, for sure. I think had I been put in the same position in WWE, I probably would have disappeared and never been seen again, because the size of the spotlight would have been too much and everyone would have been like, wah, wah. But in TNA, even though it was still quite a big platform, you know, because it was on Spike and prime time, and you know, a lot of people watching it like worldwide, there was a little. I took advantage of the fact that there was a little bit of that. You had a little bit more leeway in TNA with the audience, where they were like, all right, you know, give them a chance. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like some of those fans were brutal to me at first, but I just sort of took it in my stride. And then when the tag team came along, it was kind of like, all right, good. Well, they've put him with a really good wrestler who we respect and admire, so he can be the mouthpiece and the other guy can be the worker. And that was how we worked it out.
Well, in TNA, one of the incredible things that you got to do was not only work with Sting, but you made Sting tap. How was that like?
It's easily the most significant, you know, kind of moment in my career, as far as, especially backstage. Like, and Sean will be able to explain this much more with much more credibility than I can. But when Eric and them first came in, like, Eric did not like me at all. Like, he just was like, who's this guy? Like, he's pompous. You know, I understand. You have to have self-awareness in this business, and I understood that sometimes my shyness could be sort of mistaken for being, you know, kind of arrogant, right? And Eric definitely got that vibe from me. So then he was really like, we've talked about it on his show. Like, I was the first guest on his podcast, and we just talked about it straight up. And I was just like, I thought you hated me. And he's like, I did hate you. And I was like, well, I hated you too. You know, so it was kind of cool. But then I sort of won him over, because Sting, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that man just, he always was an advocate for me. He went out of his way to say, I think this kid has something. I think you should, like, he would constantly be like, what are you doing with Magnus now? Like, where's he going? Like, what's going on next with him? I mean, he went out of his way, like, when he didn't have to just, for whatever reason, he just took an interest in me, would come and sit with me and ask me these questions and go, you know, I really think that you've got something. And then when the time was right, and I started, you know, they sort of felt like I was ready for the next level as a singles guy. Sting I don't know. He was the one who said, I want him in the main event Mafia, and then I want to. He laid that whole thing out, and then Eric sort of produced most of that story, the whole sort of student teacher thing. And I heard later on that. Well, actually, as I heard, they told me. At first, they wanted Sting to go over. They were going to have Sting beat me at the pay-per-view, and that was going to make me snap. You know, they said like this: when you lose to Sting, like you snap and you turn heel and blah blah blah. And I said, okay, Sting was the one who was like, nope, that's not like we didn't do all this, and I haven't pushed for him for like 3 years, and I haven't done all this just to beat him. What, like, why do I need to beat him? Like he's going to beat me, and he goes and for what it's worth, he's beating me in the middle with the submission. Nice. Like, and that's it. And I just I can't even tell you like what that meant to me.
Well, there's this mentality, like in wrestling sometimes, that like, okay, if one guy is getting paid more than the other guy, he should never lose to him.
Right.
That's not a WWE thing. That was like a WCW thing for sure.
Right.
So so that's kind of the mentality. Like, oh, we better not ask. And plus, it's Sting.
Yeah.
It's Sting. Come on. So they're probably afraid to ask him, even if they Nick. Honestly, they probably already thought it was better if you beat Sting. They just didn't want to ask him.
It's funny that you're 100% right, because I said after this all happened, and whoever our agent was, I forget who the agent was, they walk away. We're sitting there, okay, and it was me, Sting, and Kurt. We'd asked Kurt to come and help us put the match together.
Uh-huh.
And he said that, and then I just like sitting there kind of, thanks,
right?
I said to him, I don't know what to say, and Kurt was like, and then Sting got up and left for a minute, and Kurt was like, he didn't do that for me.
He didn't need it, though. Kurt Angle didn't need it from Sting. It helped you a lot more than it would have helped Sting or Kurt Angle.
But, yeah, and you know what's funny, Sean, is that we had that exact conversation that you just had, where I said, Sting goes to me, hey, let me ask you a question. Do I have a reputation as someone who like doesn't want to put guys over? And I said, no, I don't think so, but I've heard in the past that like they wanted someone to go over on you, and then they changed it, and he was just like, no, they never asked me to put anyone over, and
right.
Because there had been something, I think it might have been like Matt Morgan or someone like that, where they and then they had changed it, and so Sting was like, I don't want people to think, and I said, honestly, Sting, I don't think anyone thinks that you're refusing to do it. I just don't. And he goes, they never asked me. Right. They never asked me to do it. And I said, that makes sense.
So yeah, like, no, you might not have a reputation of not wanting to do a job, but you do have a reputation for not doing them.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Through no fault of his own.
Right.
So what led to your eventual departure from TNA, and how long after that did Jeff Jarrett contact you to go to Global Force?
TNA didn't have the money to match like my contract. So we were talking earlier about the WWE thing, and like, you've never been to WWE, and why aren't you in WWE, and blah blah blah. I would always be open to the idea, but I would always use it for leverage to get a better deal when my contract came up.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, maybe it was naive, considering that I'm not there now, but I always thought there's time for that. You know what I mean? Like that can come. Like, but right now I can get, I can make good money here.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that people make these like sideways remarks because they read stuff online and stuff like that. But I had some very good years in TNA, and I didn't have that many late checks. Like, they took care of me. Like I had a few 6-figure years there, and don't get me wrong, nothing like the kind of money you would make in WWE, but for the schedule, and they took care of my hotels and stuff like that. Like, I had a sweet deal, and I leveraged WWE, for that. And why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, it's business,
of course.
So, when they lost the Spike deal, unfortunately, their business model was very vulnerable in that respect, because that made up for the vast majority of their income. So once they lost that revenue stream, we just knew that was that money wasn't going to be there anymore. So I just said, well, I basically said to him, I said, let me save you the trouble. Like, I know you can't match that, I know you can't match what you're paying me now. So when it comes up, like, let's just shake hands and walk away. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened.
Was WWE ever knocking on your door, Nick?
I had a brief conversation with, he's not there anymore. I forget his name. He was like the recruiting guy, Ty Bailey.
Oh, Ty Bailey. Yeah, okay.
And I didn't at that time. I didn't really understand that if you were under contract somewhere, that you weren't allowed to have a conversation with them.
It's called tampering.
Yeah, and so my contract was up. I had like 2 weeks left on it, and I just reached out to him. It's like, I was just, my contract's coming up. I was just wondering if there's any interest, right? And I sent him my stuff, and he got back to me right away. I was like, wow, call me ASAP.
Yeah.
So I did, and then he was like, wait, you're still under contract? And I was kind of like, yeah, just for another couple. He's like, oh, I can't talk to you, bye. And that was kind of the end
honestly,
of
it. I think it's okay if you contact them if your contract's coming up. It's just not okay.
They're not allowed to like poach you.
They're not allowed to poach you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that was the thing. It was like I reached out and just seeing what was going on, and this was in 2010, I think. So, and then after that, no, just the sort of back channel stuff,
sure.
Like which you can never. And honestly, like most of the time, I just never really trusted the back channel sources enough to go. If the offer was there from TNA, I wasn't gonna kind of trust my gut and go, well, maybe. Just because I just treat it like business.
When it comes to that kind of stuff, Nick, I like to talk to the horse's mouth, not the horse's ass.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've never really talked about this publicly, and I've always been careful not to do it because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But when I left, when my contract ran out at TNA and I left, when I was a free agent, there were some more serious discussions. But at first it was just like it was cold, like nothing happened, and then basically it was a weird situation because I was like, there's got to be more to it than just that. Like I can't, I'm not suggesting that I'm like this great talent and that they should be like hammering down my door, but the response was weird, and I didn't really understand. And then eventually, and I've never spoken about this before.
Okay.
But there was enough guys. I mean, look, Sting, Kurt, Joe, all these guys had like endorsed me publicly and privately, and I'm going like, that doesn't count for anything. You know what I mean? It turned out that someone, and I won't say who it was, but if you understand, you'll know who I mean when you figure it out. But
yeah.
Like, someone who used to work at TNA, who now works at WWE, for whatever reason, just decided to completely bury me to Hunter, and I don't know why. And I don't even know why I'm protecting the guy, because like it was such a shitty thing to do, and I never did anything but show him respect. And even after TNA had let him go, like I still went to like check in on him and like see him and have dinner with him and stuff. And I don't know why that happened, but for whatever reason, like that was the word I got, and that was a reliable source. I mean, that wasn't.
Oh, I'm sure it's 100% true.
And
unfortunately, that's bullshit. Yeah, that sucks.
And it, honestly, Sean, like the version of it that I got was that, yeah, you've got a lot of people pushing for you, but they're talent, but in the office, like. There's only this is the only guy who actually worked with you, and he's like buried you with 2 shovels.
Gotcha.
So, and I just maybe it's my fault. I may have too much pride, but I just once I sort of got wind of that, I just kind of went, okay, well, if the word of a guy who's widely disliked and discredited and distrusted in the business like means more to you than the word of Sting and Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, and countless other guys, and Keven and
sure.
Even yourself, like you said publicly, like and I said, if the word of this scumbag means more to you than the word of these guys, then, you know, I guess have at it. Do you know what I mean? And I just kind of said, like, I made the choice then personally to be like, I'm moving on with my life. If they, you know, they know where I am.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be arrogant about it.
No,
like,
you're not coming off that way at all, Nick, and you never have. You never have. So yeah, don't think that.
Well, changing gears. When you were in Mexico and you hurt your bicep, you were working with a lot of the Lucha Underground talent. Have you been offered a season 4 contract from Lucha Underground? Any chances of seeing you in the temple, possibly?
No, I mean, I think I may have had a couple of emails back and forth with Krista Joseph. Like, I think I reached out to him and said, you know, and just kind of said, hey, you know, just I'm a free agent now, you know, but never any more than that. Yeah, I forget who all was in that match because it was, you know, it's AAA, so it was a 6-man. I know that I think it was Mike Bailey was the guy. I got hurt because of catching a dive, and it was just a freak thing. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was just like, you know, my arm was already exhausted, and I think I had like pretty bad tendonitis already. And then I always prided myself on being a good catcher, right, for guys doing dives. You know, I was proud of myself on being there for them. And you know, speedball comes flying over, and I just stuck my arm out really wide, and it just hyperextended my arm, and I just felt it pop.
I love Speedball. I think he's amazing. I'm surprised no one's really locked him down to a
Yeah, very nice guy too. Really nice kid.
Hey, Nick, are you still doing a column in Fighting Spirit magazine?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, still do that.
Yeah, that's great. I get that magazine every month, and I appreciated the nice words you had for me in one of your columns. It was right after. It was right after I had the injury, right?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. Honestly, Sean, like I've been doing that column for like 8 years or something now. It's something crazy like that, and it's hard to think of stuff to write about sometimes. It's a bit more liberating now because I'm not under contract, right? So it's not, you don't have to be quite as careful about what you say. But it's always that thing when you're a talent, especially me. Like, I'm 30, and I always think to myself, you know, who wants to hear from a guy who's like hasn't done anything? You know what I mean? Like, there's guys like Cornette writing in there and stuff like that. So I always try to not come across as sort of pretentious or like up my own ass. But, you know, I try to just sort of write like a funny sort of commentary on what's going on, you know. But it's hard sometimes to think of content that's entertaining and not going to get you tons of heat with everyone.
I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, currently you have a lot going on. You got a show in London on October 24th, a show in Glasgow on October 25th, and a show in Liverpool on October 26th, and then House of Hardcore November 17th and 18th.
Yes.
Tell us about
actually, we actually have 6 shows in the UK. The 3 shows you just mentioned are fan parties. They're like Tommy Dreamer's Hardcore Halloween fan parties, and they'll be really fun. You know, we'll do like an uncensored Q&A with Tommy, and then we'll play some games, and Victoria will be there, and Davari and myself and a few other special guests, and we do fun stuff. We'll do a Q&A panel, completely uncensored, no recording, no nothing like that, just fun. And then we'll do some Halloween games, some like fan participation stuff, and obviously like all the Q&A stuff. We have like a cool backdrop with, you know, so that the people get a real good photo rather than just like a random like standing there with a guy photo. You know, there'll be like kendo sticks and all that kind of stuff. Nice. And then on the 27th we have a regular wrestling show in Coventry, and then the 28th is at Grimsby Auditorium, and the 29th in Kings Lynn, which is my hometown.
Cool.
Awesome.
Hey, how's married life, man?
It's there. It's good.
Yeah.
She's I just heard her come in a few minutes ago. We're doing a late birthday party for my son. He turned 3 on Monday, but obviously she was at Raw.
And that was the next thing I was going to ask you is how is it being a dad? I already know because I am one. So
sure,
it's amazing.
I'll tell you, you know, this. I don't know if whether this happened with you, but when Donovan came along, like I just stopped giving a shit about so much like unnecessary stuff. Yeah. And there was part of me that went, God, why didn't this happen? Like, why couldn't this have happened like before I got the title with TNA? Like, where I you know, because I can hold my hand up and say there were times where I was a little bit difficult. You know, I was a little bit cantankerous, but I've always been someone who I resented the fact that the person who buried me, the thing that they said was that I was difficult to work with, and that was the thing that hurt the most, because I always said that I was someone who would suggest an alternative. I would never just say I don't like that. I would always suggest, hey, could we do it like this? But ultimately, I always respected the decision of the boss. So like whatever happened in the end, whatever they said, this is what we're doing, I would go and do it, and I would deliver, like always. And so, to get that, to think that like the people, Triple H, who I was such a fan of, who I tried to sort of model myself after as the world champion, like to think that like this is the impression that he has of me now, like that broke my heart, man. Like, because I was just like, that's so unfair, because I always felt like the guys who get it, like they're gonna state the case. This is a cerebral business. Like you can't all just be like mindless grunts who go like, yeah, okay, I'll do exactly what you think, because then you end up with a sterile product. And I was just terrible, like, all I would do was just suggest, make suggestions, but ultimately whatever the decision was, I'd be like, all right, that's my job, that's what you pay me to do, I'll go do it.
I think somebody just didn't like having their whatever they came up with second guessed.
Yeah, and that's a silly, to me, like that's a silly position to be in as a creative, because ultimately if the show is awesome, you're going to get that credit no matter what. Like no one's going to go, oh, I bet that so-and-so had some input on that segment. Like they're just going to, ultimately all they're going to remember is like, was that show good or was it meh? And if the show was great, then everyone wins. It doesn't really matter who, because it's a collaborative effort. Like people always say to you like, hey, who came up with that? It's kind of like, well, no one person ever really came up with anything, right? Like it's always a sort of collaborative effort, because if I'm sitting in a room with Sean Waltman,
it should be a collaborative effort.
Yeah, right.
If you're
involved, I'm sitting in a room with you and Keven and Scott and like all these really smart guys, and I'm like with spitballing a bunch of stuff, and I'm suddenly inspired, and I say, oh, what if we did this? It's like I've only got to that point because I've been in the room with all you guys, and vice versa. So it's like, I don't know. Like to me, that was the hard part of all that. But yeah, like I always enjoyed that process.
Yeah. Hey, how about like I just thought of this, and I know we're getting short on time. We're coming to the end of this, but ROH, man, I can totally see you in ROH and kicking some serious ass there.
I was just gonna say, have you ever been offered PWG?
No, never really had any discussion there. Ring of Honor, again, just the kind of, hey, I'm available type thing. But obviously, I know that Marty, obviously, because Marty and I pretty much broke in together. He started somewhere else, but then he was like 16, and I started giving him a ride to the wrestling school and stuff, and so we were pretty much in the thick of it from the beginning together. I know that, he would love that. I think he would enjoy that. You know what I mean? Like we talk about that, and he's like, God, it would be great, and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's always I think that it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like I feel like I've been a weird sort of purgatory, in the sense that a lot of people have always assumed that I would end up at WWE. So in the respect to other places, I feel like there's a little bit of that hesitation, because they don't want to commit, you know what I mean? Because then they think, well, what's the point? He's going to end up there, right? Well, so it kind of works against you.
I honestly think you will. Like, I just think that everything's not even close to set and done yet with your career, Nick. Trust me on that.
I appreciate that. It's hard to say, because it's just the business is so different now, even just from when I got into now. Sure. It's just so fragmented now, and it's just it's a tough position. Like I'm for the first time, like I've actually just started doing like a civilian stuff. Like I started consulting for my friend's marketing company. Like he has a talent and events company, and they specialize in booking talent to represent brands, like brand ambassadors and stuff. And so we would sit around and have drinks and stuff, and we would just discuss like his business or whatever. And then he just contacted me and was like, I can double our business, but I need someone who gets it. Like I need someone who understands people and understands like psychology and understands marketing and stuff. He's like, would you be a consultant? And I was just like, yeah. Like,
How
all
about
right, you know
this?
what I mean? Like,
Sounds-
it's weird because there's part of me that went, I've got to let go of, you know what I mean? It was like the first time in my adult life that I was not just a pro wrestler, you know, not just sort of something in that realm. But you know, in a way, it's sort of liberating because it's like, well, we'll see what happens, you know.
Because guess what? And I used to not understand this, but there's tons of life outside of wrestling. I mean, there's so much of our life. I mean, it's we can really think that, oh my God, without wrestling there's nothing, you know, and that's just bullshit. It's not true.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I've always been such an admirer of yours. Obviously, I was a fan anyway, but then getting to know you is just like we have very similar world views and social views and, you know, dare I say, political views. And it's nice that, you know, it's encouraging when I see guys who understand that element, because some guys, I think, especially in WWE, like, they encourage that bubble, and so then it's almost like controversial to encourage interest outside of the business, because they feel like you're being, you know, you're deliberately trying to, you know, you're sort of encouraging dissidence or something.
That's
and it's
true.
funny, but
that's
I
true.
love it.
I've always been
Healthy.
I've always been a little bit controversial when it comes to saying things like that.
No
Because
kidding.
I mean, if the truth is controversial, it's controversial.
Right. Exactly.
So, Nick, I mean, I'm sure there's. Hey, you guys want to get any last questions out?
We've had him so long.
Okay. Anything? Any last question? Anything? Okay.
Oh, your book, Superstar Body, you have
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I want to know, what's your secret to keeping that amazing physique?
There is no secret. You know, I will say this: I really enjoyed doing the book, and I think the reason I did it was because a publisher contacted me and like basically wanted to do something with me, and I just said, I haven't done enough to write a book. Like, who's going to buy it? Who cares about like what I've done in wrestling? Like, it's nothing. But I tell you what, I do think, like, I think that there's a lot of stuff in the fitness side of things that is a bit untouched. And what I tried to do was basically make a one-stop book where it was like, sift through all the bullshit in the magazines, because they deliberately only tell you a little bit so that you have to get next month's and next month's and next month's, right? And it's sort of contradictory. As like, these are the things that I've learned, and from like working with Olympic athletes and stuff like that, and gladiators, to like top trainers and like CEOs of supplement companies, and I got them all to collaborate. So I was like, again, who wants to hear from just one guy? So there's loads of different people contributed to the book, and I'm actually working on another one now, but more focused on food, and it's going to be a completely digital product, and it's going to be Alpha Meal, where it's going to be like eat like a man, right? Like, so it's like eat right, but not just like boring chicken breast and, you know, and broccoli every day, and like some really cool guys like Chael Sonnen and different guys have sort of contributed to it and stuff. So we're kind of putting that together now. But no, the secret is consistency and intensity. Those are the two things. You got to get in there, get it done, and get out, and then, you know, make sure that whatever you're doing, it's a consistent thing, because your body is the product of the last like 2 to 3 months of work, not the last 2 to 3 days.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nick, man, I want to thank you for coming on, man. Hey, before we let you go, can you plug your social media and everything, you know, that they can find you at?
Yeah, sure. My Twitter is @RealNickAldis, ALDIS, and my Instagram is @NickAldis, and my Facebook is the same as my Twitter, @RealNickAldis. And then, if any of you guys in the UK are interested in going to any of the shows I was talking about, go to superstarproms.eventbrite.com, or if you go to Eventbrite and search Superstar Promotions, you'll find the page for all the tickets and all the shows.
Happy birthday to Donovan.
Yeah, man. I was just going to say
you,
that.
guys.
Happy birthday to Donovan, and my love to your beautiful wife, and
Thank you
you
very
as
much.
well.
And your new kitten.
Yeah, and yes, and the new baby kitten. And I just want to thank you for giving us some of your time today, man. Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough for, you know, all of your advice and your encouragement over the years, and especially any time that you've publicly endorsed me. It really means a whole lot.
I'm a big fan of yours. I don't just throw those endorsements out to anyone. So, all right, man.
Thank you, Sean.
Have an awesome day, man.
Thank you so
take
much,
care.
Nick.
Bye bye.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Amazing.
man. That was fun. That was really fun. I really like Nick a lot, and I'm a fan of his, and it's a shame that, you know, somebody, and I have my ideas of who he's talking about. Pretty sure I know who that, you know, cut his grass like that. But, you know, I think he's good enough to where eventually, if he really wants to, he'll end up where, you know.
Well, and this is something that you and Jesse Ventura talked about, is building your stock elsewhere.
Yes.
So when you go to WWE,
That's right.
you have, like he used WWE in his contract negotiation
Sure.
with TNA. Now he'll have his stardom elsewhere that they'll want to pay a higher price
Sure.
to get him there.
You know, a lot of people thought maybe AJ Styles would never end up in WWE.
And look at him now.
So, yeah, I mean, and I understand from his point of view where it might be frustrating or, geez, maybe I'm never going to end up there. Got to get rid of that mentality, man, and keep that positive attitude, because it will happen as long as you keep that attitude.
And he's got
positive.
the whole
I was
package.
just
Yeah.
gonna say that he's got the look. He's
Yeah.
in great shape. He's young. The whole British invasion that's going on in WWE right now with the UK.
Exactly.
Who knows if he's the guy that comes in and rallies all the UK guys together to form a faction or something.
I feel like there's so many places that he can be at right now that would be just a great benefit. And like you said, maybe he doesn't see it right now because you're always your harshest critic.
Right.
But I think all of us here and all the fans, I think we all see it.
Oh,
Definitely.
yeah.
For sure.
So let's do the rounds here and get and
Wrap it up.
talk about, you know, our social media
Well, you
stuff.
got a lot going on.
A lot, you know, some
So,
different things.
Sean will be in Fremont, California for BTW Wrestling October 6th on Friday. You can follow him on Twitter at BT Wrestling to find out more about tickets there. Saturday, October 14th, you'll be at Sold Out in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Yeah, but there's 2 shows in,
There's 2
in
shows.
BTW.
Are there?
Yes, I have 2 shows back to back. I put that on the schedule, Jimbo.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's because I took it off the flyer.
Yeah.
Sold Out, it'll be a convention with other NWO members. I believe Eric Bischoff, Scott Norton, Kevin Nash are all going to be there.
Yes.
That's October
Sting's going to be
14th.
there.
Oh, yeah, he just announced that he's going
Yes.
to be there. IW Revolution on Twitter to find out more about that. Sunday, October 22nd in Old Forge, Pennsylvania. A live stream for Powerbomb TV. You're going to be wrestling? Or you're
I
gonna be,
know, just going to be presenting
just
or
hanging
doing
out?
something, yes.
Sunday, October 29th, Heavy on Wrestling in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yes.
On Twitter at RealHeavyOn or HeavyOnWrestling.com for tickets for that. And then a seminar at the Academy. The
Davari and Ken
Davaris.
Anderson's. But I have is my Fan HQ appearance listed there in Eden Prairie, Minnesota?
No.
Huh.
When is that?
It's on the 20. Oh God, this sounds so bad that I don't have this information right here. Fan HQ.
We'll tweet about it.
Yeah.
We got the 29th, the 30th is the seminar on Monday, and be sure to subscribe to all the new AfterBuzz wrestling content on AfterBuzz Wrestling and Sports.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm not sure who the guest is next week, but I know who it is 2 weeks from now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I already let you guys know, but I'm not going to say it yet.
Okay.
Why did I even tell everyone that?
Where can they find you, Jim?
Follow me on Twitter at Jimbo in the Booth.
You guys can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo and on YouTube, Denise Salcedo.
Also follow us on AfterBuzz TV at AfterBuzz TV. Follow Sean on Twitter, The Real XPAC, IG XPAC12360, Facebook XPAC12360 Show. Sign up for our newsletter on our Facebook page. You can also buy all those shirts on Pro Wrestling T/Sean Waltman, and also Celeb VM. You can get some stuff from Sean over there as well. And you can follow me. I'll also give 5 comments or 5 stars on our iTunes and also YouTube. Make sure to leave some comments, and also everything that's been happening. World events, hurricanes, earthquakes, and stuff like that. You can go to oneamericaappeal.org to help donate, and also voiceforpuertorico.com. You
Yes.
can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad.
Yeah, some love, some serious love want to send out to everyone in Mexico and Puerto Rico right now. It's the least we can do.
Yep.
All right, everyone. We'll see y'all here next week on XPAC 1, 2, 3, 60.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Sean Waltman, producers Jimbo Frank and TK Trinidad, managing producer of AfterBuzz TV Wrestling Mark Donica, and the entire XPAC 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube. Follow XPAC on Twitter at TheRealXPAC and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com. This has been a presentation of the AfterBuzz TV Network. Buzz ya later!